So I decided to start my second company in a totally different way than I started the first.
Okay.
At Oculus, it was a hobby, and I liked doing it, and I had no expectations of making money. But once you've had a measure of success, at least for me, you get addicted to it, and you want to win. Also, just like I said, I was fired from my last job. So I have a chip on my shoulder, and I'm bitter and angry about it. And so I have to prove to everyone that I'm better. And if I were to take a job where I would just go do something that was fun, but it wasn't particularly successful, then everyone would think that I'm a loser. And I don't want people to think I'm a loser. So for better or for worse, I was kind of forced in my next move. I said, okay, I have to do something that proves that they shouldn't have fired me, that I am smart, and that I'm not a one-hit wonder. Because being a one-hit wonder would be so depressing. If I had done Oculus and then failed in my next company and then failed again, I would be in a very mentally bad place.
Oh.
But instead, I'm doing pretty good. So I guess the difference here is on my second company, I didn't approach it as like, oh, let's just see what happens. I'll just do what I like doing and maybe it'll be fun. I have a lot of hobbies. There's lots of things that I like doing. I collect erotic anime figurines, but I didn't start an erotic anime figurine dealership because you can't make money doing that. And so I said, okay, there's kind of three things I think I can make money doing. And there were three areas I thought about starting a company in. One was working in the national security space. I thought, okay, cost plus contracting is a broken contract structure. It leads to massive cost overruns. Everyone has the wrong incentives. I think that I could start a company that does a lot of these things that companies like Lockheed and Raytheon and Northrop are bad at doing, that I'm good at doing, and that I can hire people who are good at doing those things. The other was I considered starting a nonprofit private prison company that could outcompete all of the publicly traded private prison companies. People may disagree with me. I think private prisons are very bad. I think they lead to terrible outcomes. They're a lobbying machine where all the money that is generated largely goes back into lobbying government officials for stricter sentences on the people who are the cheapest to incarcerate. So not the terrorists, not the murderers, it's the non-violent offenders. It's the victimless crime criminals. Those are the ones that private prisons want to house because they're not going to kill people, they're not going to cause you too much fuss. And that's how you end up with a lot of these mandatory minimum sentencing laws for crimes that don't matter, in my opinion. So at first I thought you could just get rid of this by lobbying. And then I realized that that's not possible because there's so much money in it. So I said, okay, I'll just start a nonprofit private prison company. And I'll just make a nonprofit prison company. And I'll have a different model. I'll say, hey, I'll incarcerate your people in my private prison, except I don't get paid anything until they've been out of prison for 5 years without going back. And if they go back, I don't get paid. It means that I'm taking on the risk, and it means my incentives are going to be very aligned with, getting people out of prison and not having them come back. Whereas current prisons is the opposite. I decided against that because I realized that it was not actually a skill set that I had. I'm a technology guy, and as much as I thought this was going to be a very interesting thing to do, and I would like to do it someday on some time scale, the legal issues with doing this state by state are very, very tough. A lot of these prisons are also, they do these multi-decade long contracts. And so it's like, oh, I want to do this in California. Well, I have to wait at least 7 years for the next opening. And then it's like 4 more years till the next one. It's like, okay, so this is like a 30-year bet before I can do anything.
Yeah.
And then the last one was petroleum-based food products. I think the only way to solve obesity in America is to allow anybody to eat as much as they want of anything with no self-control or changes to their physical activity whatsoever. It has to be the holy grail. Or we're all just going to keep dying of obesity and related problems. And so if you're a food scientist, you generally make things out of foodstuffs, and I think that's a big mistake. If you're a chemical engineer, material engineer, and you want to make something with a certain texture, a certain feel, a certain property, you start with long-chain hydrocarbons, oil. It is the perfect building block for everything. You can build tires, glues, gels. You can build anything out of it. So if you're going to try to make a fake burger that tastes like a fake burger and feels like a real burger, why would you start with plants? You wouldn't build tires out of plants. You wouldn't build gels out of plants. You wouldn't build rubber out of plants. So why would you try to make something that has many of those same properties out of plants? Because plants suck. So if you could make synthetic foods out of petroleum derivatives, you could make foods that have largely the same characteristics as real foods, but have 0 calories because your bodies cannot process them. So I started building paraffin cheese, and paraffin cheese totally works. It has no calories, and it tastes mostly like cheese, and I think that you could get it to be better than cheese on some time scale because it's actually easier to adjust it and play with it and iterate on it than with cultured dairy products. Anyway, I decided against that because it turns out the FDA completely bans this idea. It's completely illegal. And by the way, another thing about petroleum-based food products, you can recycle them when you're done with them. And people don't like that idea either. They don't like the idea of taking what comes out one end and putting it back in the other. And so that was why I decided against that. I said, this is going to be too much of a marketing problem. People aren't going to accept this. And also the FDA literally says doing this is a crime. I would have to convince them to allow the food industry to pivot to making not food with no calories. And so I decided I was going to work in the national security space because that was an area where I do have a lot of technical talent. I can hire people to work in it. I can make a lot of money and do something successful with it. And if I'm able to actually accomplish my goals there, I'll still be very, very happy with myself. So I rambled for a bit there, but you asked how did I decide to start this company? And it was very much a conscious, I have to do something that is going to matter. I have to do something where people say, wow, Palmer did it again. Yeah. And I of those 3 things that I came up with, and there's a long list of much worse ideas, if you can believe it. But I'm gonna get to those someday. I'll solve obesity someday, and I'll save everybody from private prison someday, but I can't do everything at once. But there's one other thing, I'm on a tangent now. Elon Musk is able to run multiple companies at the same time. I cannot. It's not possible. I will never do it.
然后，如果你今天在 YouTube 上看的话，请帮我订阅，然后把小铃铛点开，你就不会错过下一则。这是一件扩穿。如果你觉得今天的直播你有学到新的东西，也帮我把影片给分享出去。区块链的每日直播是每周一、每周三、每周五呢都会讲最新的区块链新闻，然后各种加密货币跟去中心化金融 DeFi。我们明天见，拜拜。